Last year, I purchased my first ever large apartment building, which was 334 units in Georgia. But prior to doing that, my focus has been on residential real estate, where I flipped hundreds of homes. But as it stands today, I'm doing both residential and commercial real estate at a high level. We've even bought more apartments, and I continue to flip and wholesale over 100 deals a year. So in today's video, I want to explain to you the difference between residential and commercial real estate and figure out which one is best for you to pursue. If you're new to my channel, my name's Ryan Pineda. I'm a real estate investor and entrepreneur, and the goal of this channel is to help you live the wealthy way. If you want to learn more about that, go to wealthyway.com to get access to all of our free materials. Now, most people who start investing in real estate opt to go for the residential side. It's much easier to get started, and most people are looking for a house that they can buy and live in as their first home. Along with that, you're able to get into them with very low down payments. With an FHA loan, you can get into a house for 3.5% down. If you're a veteran, you can get into a house for 0% down. And I think for most people, they love that concept and they're good with just buying a few houses that way. But as you progress past that to become a full-time investor, you start realizing there are a whole bunch of other things you can do. You can start wholesaling real estate, you can do Airbnbs, you can start flipping properties, and you start to just pursue all these ways to get deals in the residential space. And as you have more success with that, I've realized that many high-level investors want to start getting into commercial instead. And this is the exact path that I took for many reasons, which I'm going to tell you about in this video. But let's go over the differences between residential and commercial so that you know which one to pursue. So first off, let's talk about what actually is residential or commercial. Well, residential real estate, in my opinion, would be a single family home. It could be a townhouse. It can be a condo. It could even be a mobile home. These are all forms of residential real estate that you can buy with FHA or conventional loans. Commercial real estate, on the other hand, is pretty much any real estate outside of that. It could be apartment buildings, it could be retail shopping centers, it could be storage facilities. I would include vacant land in commercial real estate, as well as RV parks. Really, the goal of commercial real estate is to treat it like a business and make money. You personally are not going to ever buy commercial real estate to live in. You're buying it purely as an investment, and for most people, the reason that they want to get in commercial real estate is because it represents a much bigger investment. Now that we know the definitions, let's talk about the differences on how you evaluate them. So the first and most important question is, how do you determine the value of each? Well, in residential, what you do is take comparable properties and see what they're selling for close to it. To find a comparable property, you're going to look for something that has the most similar attributes. You want to see similar square footage, year built, lot size. You want it to be really close to your property, similar bedrooms, bathrooms, and school districts. Once you find all the homes that are similar to the property that you have or are looking at buying, you can then figure out what the value is. If you see that they're all selling for $400,000 to $450,000, depending on their different amenities or how nice they're done, you can get a good idea that your property is going to probably be worth $400,000 to $450,000, depending on what you have. If your house is fully flipped and renovated and you got a pool, it's probably worth $450,000. If it needs a little bit of work, it's probably worth $400,000. So figuring out the value of residential real estate is not that difficult. In commercial real estate, on the other hand, the main way that they determine value is by using the NOI and cap rate. So NOI stands for net operating income, and that is how much money the property nets after all the expenses. Obviously, you've got your rental income, which is what most people look at, but you also have all these operating expenses like the taxes, the insurance, the maintenance, the property manager, and everything else that it takes to run that commercial real estate. Then you also have the cap rate. And basically the cap rate is a return that an investor is looking for on that asset class in that area. So for example, if you hear someone saying that things are being traded at a 6 cap, what they're saying is the cap rate for that asset in that area is 6%, meaning that for every $100,000 that they invest into an asset, they want to make 6% on that deal. So theoretically, $1 million property should make $60,000 a year. Now, if you're going to reverse engineer this and figure out what a property is worth, all you're going to do is take the NOI divided by the cap rate. So let's just say I'm looking at this property here in Las Vegas and it has an NOI of $1 million. After all the expenses and everything, this property legitimately makes $1 million net. And then let's say the cap rate in that area is 5%. Well, what we're gonna do then is take $1 million and divide it by 5%. Now, when you divide by 5%, you gotta move the decimal over 2 places, so it's gonna be divided by 0.05. And so $1 million divided by 0.05 equals 20 million. So essentially that property here in Las Vegas is worth $20 million based on the cap rate and how much income it produces. So as you can see, it's very different how you value residential real estate versus commercial real estate. With residential, you can really only add value by fixing it up and making it nice, and it's gonna pretty much get at or above the nicest comp. But with commercial real estate, you add value by increasing your NOI. And how you choose to increase your NOI can be a number of things. You can renovate the apartments and get new leases so that rents go higher. You can lower your vacancy so that you have more people renting. You can add all these amenities in the apartment complex to generate more income. Maybe you add a laundry machine or something that generates revenue. Or you can also cut your expenses. Maybe you make your electricity bill and your water bill lower, or perhaps you get more efficient with your management and you lower costs that way. No matter what you do in commercial real estate, as long as you make it more profitable and you increase that NOI, the value of your property is going to go up. And it doesn't really matter what the next 100-unit apartment is selling for because it is completely different than yours. Now, another big difference of residential versus commercial is how you finance them. So as I said before, with residential, you're gonna use an FHA loan, a VA loan, or even a conventional loan. With commercial, they have a whole bunch of loan products that you're gonna use. We've used bridge loans and a whole bunch of different types of commercial loans. They have recourse and non-recourse. Recourse meaning that you're personally guaranteeing it, and if you don't pay, you're on the hook for it. Non-recourse would be that you're not personally on the hook for it if things go south. With residential, typically if you stop paying your loan, you get foreclosed on, and that's really the worst that happens. In commercial, not only can you get foreclosed on, but they can also come after you for any losses that they had. Now, I should say technically they can do it in residential as well, but very rarely does that happen. Another big difference is in how the banks evaluate you for these loans. On the residential side, they're looking at your debt to income ratios, they are looking at your credit score and all that good stuff. On the commercial side, they're looking at the asset itself to see what kind of income it produces, and then they also want to look at you and your track record as an investor. If you try to buy a 100-unit building right now without any experience, they're probably not going to loan to you. Mainly because you haven't proved to them that you can manage an apartment this size. So if you were trying to get into it right away, you would have to partner with somebody like me who already has a resume of doing big commercial deals. Because then the bank will feel better about it having somebody who's experienced in your corner, and they'll base their financing on both of us. And on top of that, with these commercial loans, they do a full-on interview of you. They wanna know what you're doing with the property, what the game plan is, what your experience is, what you're gonna do if things don't go the right way. They don't really do this on the residential side. They're just like, okay, you wanna buy the property, you've got good debt to income ratio, your credit's good, all right, let's do it. Commercial is really like they're joining into a business partnership with you, and they wanna vet you out to make sure that you can actually handle this building. Another big difference with commercial and residential are the spreads. So in residential, when I first started this business of flipping houses, I was good making $20,000 on a flip. That was a lot of money for me. 8 years later, $20,000 on a flip probably is not a good minimum anymore because prices have gone up so much. When we were buying houses for $150,000 to $200,000, making 20 grand was good. We're making more than 10%. But now with prices being close to $500,000, we can't accept making $20,000 on a $500,000 flip. It's too risky. But even with our margins going higher on house flipping, they're nothing in comparison to what we expect in commercial. If I buy a building like that 334 unit where we paid a little over $20 million, I can tell you, I'm not even looking to make $1 million on it. We're trying to make over $10 million when it's all said and done because we have to hold this thing for a lot longer time period. It's going to require a lot more work, and your site should just be set higher with commercial and appreciation that is going to happen with it. So for us, whether we refinance the commercial building or we sell it, we're trying to make millions of dollars on every single deal. And this is because the prices are much higher. You've got to make more. One thing you also see is because the higher prices, the spreads on wholesale fees will be much bigger on commercial as well. I've seen people wholesale deals for over $1 million with commercial real estate. Some of my students in Future Flipper have wholesaled land that has made 7 figures. These guys in commercial are just willing to pay a lot more because the plays are that much bigger. I would happily go pay somebody $1 million if I knew I was gonna make $5 or $10 million. In single family, it's kind of hard to do that if the house is only worth $500,000. Your spreads by nature are going to be much smaller. And this actually brings me up to another point of a big difference between the two, and that is the hold time. So with single family real estate, assuming you wanna flip, you might be able to flip this thing pretty quickly. Might take a couple of months, might take up to a year if you're doing a full-on gut. But in commercial, they're gonna be much longer. Most of our funds are anywhere from 3 to 5 years because we need time to stabilize these properties. You can't just go and get all the tenants out of there right away and then go fix them all up. It's going to take time. And so there's a chance that you're waiting for a big payday for years, whereas single family, you can get that payday tomorrow if you wholesale the right deal. But even if you take it down and buy it, your payday should come much quicker than just commercial. Another key difference is this syndication model that commercial has. When we go to buy house flips, we typically use private lenders or hard money lenders, but it's usually one person that is gonna fund a deal. But with commercial, we have to start funds so that we can syndicate the deals. Case in point, when we bought the 334 unit, we had to raise almost $6 million. I wish that the $6 million would have came from just one person. That's just not the case with raising $6 million. We had some people put in 50,000 here, 200,000 there. Some people were willing to do $500,000, and our biggest investors did $1.5 million. But still, it took a whole bunch of people in order to raise that $6 million to buy that building. And when you raise money in a fund like that, you do need to go through the proper legal work to make sure you're doing it legally. We've had to raise through a 506c fund, which is strictly for accredited investors. And what that allows me to do is to make videos like this, publicly advertising the fund and getting money from people who I don't have a relationship with. And for me, it's great because now I get to tap into my audience and share in profits on these different deals that we're doing. It's a lot harder to do that on the residential side because we just don't have to raise as much money, and we don't really want to pool people's money together on one property like we would with an apartment. And speaking of our fund, if you are interested in getting in on our deals and you are an accredited investor, you can go to pinedacapital.com and apply to join today. You'll get exclusive access to all of our deals before I ever talk about them publicly, so you get your chance to invest on the best ones. Now, another key difference is the time that it takes to do deals. In the residential space, we are very used to being able to close in a couple of days. Typically, the sellers we negotiate with are ready to roll, we sign a contract the same day, and then we can close it really quickly with the title company. On the commercial side, it moves so much slower. There are many times where we're ready to do a deal, but it just moves so much slower in the commercial space. You've got lawyers who are exchanging paperwork back and forth. It seems like the sellers aren't as motivated to make something happen right away. And so your time from start to close is just so much longer in commercial. So that's kind of annoying, but it is what it is. And that leads me to another key difference, which is probably the biggest reason why I'm getting into commercial. And that is economies of scale. So in residential, if I buy one property, I probably just own that one house on that one block. And as I build my portfolio throughout the city, all the houses are spread out across, and I probably get a local property manager to do it all. But on the commercial side, when I buy 126 units in Iowa like we did, it's big enough to give us economies of scale where we can get property management on site, we can hire a maintenance guy on site, we can get a construction crew who can just knock out all of these apartments over and over again, and you can get them done for faster and cheaper because everything is right there. You start getting economies of scale. But this also works when it comes to doing a deal. For example, if I wanted to go buy 126 houses, that's 126 different transactions. I gotta find that many deals, and it's a whole bunch of work to be able to close that many transactions and get financing on every single house. But with the apartment, we can just roll it together in one deal, work on financing one time, raise money for it one time, and close escrow one time. And so if I wanna buy 1,000 units this year, which is my goal, it's gonna be easier for me to just go buy 10 100 unit apartments than it is to go buy 1,000 different deals. And this is probably the biggest reason why most bigger investors start going towards commercial, because it's just much easier to get your money deployed and to do bigger deals when it's all together in that one deal. Now, if you had to ask me which one is better, I think they both are great. I still do both to this day. I still buy single family houses that I'm gonna keep as rentals, we still buy apartments as well. I don't think it has to be one or the other, but I do think that if you're just starting out with real estate investing, then I would probably focus on building your skill set in the residential space. It's exactly what I did, and then it gives you the ability and the talent and the experience to later on move into commercial. And this is exactly what a bunch of our students at Future Flipper have done. They've learned to flip and wholesale at a high level. They then use those same skills to find deals, manage construction, and raise money for not only just residential anymore, but they use it to go raise money for a fund and then do big commercial deals. Essentially, they're following the same path that I took. So if that is your goal and you want to take a similar path, I would highly suggest you go to futureflipper.com, book a call with our team, and we'll help you do just that. But anyways, I hope you got a lot of value out of this video. If you did, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.